the story, and I saw it on Ryzen initially, but CNN has Norfolk, and you're talking about Norfolk Southern. You're talking about the rail company that just had the derailment in Ohio. There's a lobbyist. He was a former lobbyist of that company. He's actually been a lobbyist for a lot of terrible things, and his name is David Urban. I'm sure if you watch any corporate media, even if it's for ops, like just to check it out, like you, Nick, I'm sure you've seen his face on CNN on different panels. He's been in arguments with people like Nina Turner.
David
Back
Urban, one of
when,
the worst.
yeah, this guy David Urban. So this is the headline for Media Matters, and I know Media Matters is not the greatest. So CNN commentator lobby for Norfolk Southern. The network didn't tell its audience during East Palestine discussion. And he was on CNN for a panel with Dana Bash, a Dana Bash panel about Eastern Palestine and the derailment, and didn't tell anybody this guy was actually a lobbyist and lobbied to help get some of those safety regulations eliminated on the panel. What do you think he's going to say? So why does CNN continue to employ ethically challenged lobbyist David Urban? Of course, you know why. But let's read a little bit into the article. CNN State of the Union and host Dana Bash held a Sunday roundtable discussion about the East Palestine, Ohio train derailment, featuring CNN political commentator David Urban, who said that, quote, this is part of the discussion on East Palestine, there's plenty of blame to go around on this, end quote, and pivoted to criticizing the Biden administration. CNN never disclosed or asked Urban about his work for Norfolk Southern, which paid him and his then lobbying firm over $1 million. Urban was, until 2020, the president of the lobbying firm American Continental Group, where he lobbied for Norfolk Southern on, quote, transportation issues related to railways starting in 2009, according to federal disclosure forms. He and his firm collected at least $1,140,000, according to calculations of federal data by ProPublica. And this is the last paragraph here. The Republican commentary, now the managing director for BGR Group, a leading lobbying firm that presents countless conflicts of interest for his on-air work. In its most recent lobbying quarter, BGR has continued to lobby on transportation issues. Its website also states, quote, our clients in aviation, automotive, rail, shipping, and mass transit industries rely on BGR to educate political leaders about how vital these industries are to domestic and international commerce. And that's who CNN chooses to put on their show. But it speaks to not just this, because if you know at all about CNN and other networks, they do this all the time. And for example, Disney and ABC on This Week with George Stephanopoulos, they have what's his name from New Jersey, the governor, Chris Christie. After his, remember his the whole ferry thing when they the opponent, they did something and that whole thing that happened, then they went and hired him literally like months after that. And it was like, what the fuck? This guy just had a scandal. But those things, these scandals that hurt the American population or the working class doesn't have anything. It doesn't hurt the capital class. So since we didn't in the capital class, they're like, yeah, whatever. And I'm just showing you another headline. I'm not going to read this one, but CNN didn't disclose Trumpy pundits lobbying for Norfolk Southern Rail. And it's just another headline from another article. Go ahead if you want to.
This is why I'm a big advocate of citizen journalism. This is why I implore the proletariat to take journalism back. Whether Americans know it or not, journalism has been completely hijacked by the capitalist class, and they get these journalism degrees because they get these elite offers to join institutions like Harvard because they're family connections and their social club, right? So they literally create a class barrier that make it only so the rich can be part of this journalistic club, be part of New York Times, CNN, and then they invite only other capitalists on. You notice they're not bringing workers on. Like when Rachel Maddow covered the anti-war rally, she didn't go down there and talk to ordinary workers. But when they talk about capitalist class issues, they'll bring capitalists on and talk about it. So I implore the proletariat, we need to take media and journalism back. And that is exactly what I did, which is why I decolonized my mind, and I would not allow people to dissuade me from my path. When people say, oh, what are your credentials, Nick? Why do you think you can start a network, Nick? Why do you think you can be on the Hill talking about Venezuela? What are your credentials? My credentials is because I was a worker, because I'm a black man living in America. That's my credentials. Your credential, if you're a disabled person living in America, that's your credentials. If you're a worker, if you got a kid and you're struggling for your kid, that's your credentials. That made you a valuable voice in politics. And it's insane that it's been the exact opposite for years, where those voices was not valued. You got to be a doctor, you got to be a lawyer, you got to come from someone's family to have a valuable political perspective. Which is why I advocate for citizen journalism, and I tell as many people to do this as possible on their subjects of interest. But that's my rant on this. I'll pass to you guys.
Yeah, so let's just cover maybe the first 3 or 4 minutes of this video because they give just more information about the story. And let's listen. This is where I found out about this story first.
For the rail company.
Oh, sorry.
Well, it's come to light that CNN commentator David Urban lobbied for transportation company Norfolk Southern, the rail operator at the center of the train derailment in East Palestine, Ohio, that released toxic chemicals into the air. This is according to Media Matters. Until 2020, Urban was the president of lobbying firm American Continental Group, where he lobbied for Norfolk Southern on transportation issues related to railways, starting in 2009, according to federal disclosure forms. He and his firm collected at least $1.1 million, according to a calculation of federal data by ProPublica.
CNN political correspondent Dana Bash held a roundtable discussion on Sunday about the East Palestine trail derailment featuring Urban. And according to Media Matters, CNN never disclosed or asked Urban about his work for the rail company. And we've reached out to CNN about this matter and have not heard back at the time of this taping.
They're not gonna hit you back.
Wow. I know exactly who this is. I see him on CNN frequently. He's on a lot.
Oh, yeah. And we should get into some of the other things that he has a conflict of interest about that he talks about on the show. But keep this in mind. During the segment, Dana Bash mentioned the fact that the Trump administration had rolled back some of these regulations. To which Urban replied, quote, "There's plenty of blame to go around on this. These kinds of things happen. But what's important is we do the right thing moving forward to take care of people in these towns and communities."
So this is a very important opportunity for people to understand how propaganda works behind the scenes, and how you just think these are random people picked. They're not random at all whatsoever. These are carefully placed corporate people put on TV in order to present a story. Capitalists are not going to leave it up to some willy-nilly people with their own ideas to be on TV of influence. They're not going to do that. They're going to put carefully install people, from the reporter to the people they bring on the show, to say to make sure they stay in line. Now, how do you think he colors all of his comments? A guy who could be corporately bought by anybody and just say, "Hey, do this work for me." Like, how do you think that colors his opinion about the election when they have him on there talking about the election as a commentary, when they have him on there talking about strikes, when they have him on there talking about BLM? Look at the influence he has. That's where his opinions are coming from. Now multiply that by everybody you're seeing on your cable news coverage. That's the perspective you're getting, and that's why we're so essential. Go ahead, JB.
Yeah.
Or Nick.
I mean, basically, he's a corporate spend doctor. That's basically all it is, and he's there to spend for the railroad companies, so that he continuously make corporations look good, even though in reality they have been terrible for the citizens of this nation. That's basically all it is. And so there's this combination. There's this team, this team up between corporations and the media, which basically are just employees of the media. And so, of course, they're going to put somebody like him in their ranks to have commentary about what's going on so that they can shape the minds of people so that they don't end up revolting against the corporations, which have their, they essentially, pardon me for saying this, but they have their hand up the government's ass and moving its mouth like a puppet. That's basically all it is. And so as they continuously, puppet this government, and they try to make it look like they are the good guys because, we just made a mistake as a corporation. No, they didn't. They don't care. And so they put these people in there to really anesthetize all the people who are watching so that we don't actually rise up against these corporations that are really the ones that are damaging us. When in reality, what we need to do is we need to rise up against them because they're the ones who are literally killing us in a very slow or fast pace, depending on what damage they do. So just like what they did in East Palestine, you don't think that's not going to happen again in other places. And then, it hasn't happened in other places. And then as it continuously happens, they're going to continue to keep killing you. So the question is, are you going to allow them to keep doing that and keep making you feel like, they're just making mistakes? They're not making mistakes. If I step on your foot one time, that's a mistake. If I step on twice, it's intentional. If I step on it 3 times, then you're going to knock my ass out.
Absolutely, JB. And let me, because there is a part that I do want to make sure is included. So let me play, I think it's coming up, but not quite sure. So let me play a little bit more of what Bree and Robbie says here.
And then he went on to criticize the Biden administration for their handling of the crisis. Now, I have no problem at all criticizing the Biden administration for the crisis, but running cover for the direct role that the Trump administration played in setting the stage for this crisis is not what you would expect a neutral commentator to do. It's what you would expect a lobbyist to do.
Right. And regardless, I don't care how neutral he may or may not be, you have to disclose someone who was working in a very high up position in lobbying. I mean, the revolving door between government and lobbying and media is disgusting in and of itself. But that's gotta be disclosed. I guess I'm not saying don't put him on the panel.
Yeah, and then I'm gonna fast forward because they talk about some of the other things this guy is involved in. So right here, I believe she goes over it.
Also has urged, this is all from Media Matters, this commentator has urged a military strike against Iran without any disclosure that he worked for defense contractors. He's praised then Defense Secretary Mark Esper without the network disclosing that he personally lobbied the Defense Department on behalf of defense contractors. He repeatedly attacked environmental protections without disclosing that he lobbied for fossil fuel related clients, including Norfolk Southern, which of course transports coal and other toxic chemicals. He repeatedly pushed for the passage of a trade agreement on air after he was hired to lobby for it. The network didn't disclose that conflict of interest. And he touted a lobbying client's opposition to a tax bill without any disclosure that he was being paid to do so.
You really
to me, that's truly amazing. And I just wanted to make sure to include that last part. And it's so important for us as Marxists or just humans, if you're not a Marxist, to point out these layers of corruption that I'm just telling you, there's people that don't even think that, because people assume when you watch news, why are you corrupting news? People, like the average person who's not in, like when I first started watching news, like it would never even cross my mind. I thought this is the last bastion of truth. At least the news is telling us the right thing, and come to find out that's the most lying ass shit there is. You know what I'm saying?